I am actually, yeah. Not it's very awesome. I like it here a lot. I grew up in a town called St. Augustine, Florida, and that is the oldest city in the U.S. Actually, my family was brought over to the U.S. as slaves in the 1600s and escaped and ran up the coast and founded St. Augustine, Florida. So we're the one of the oldest families in the U.S. from Europe. I'm mostly Spanish, and then I have some Seminole Indian in me as well, and a couple other things. But yeah, so I grew up there, and I actually grew up in a trailer park of all places, and I spent a good 18 years of my life in that trailer park. And I think in the very beginning of being a kid, it was awesome. It was, I mean, we had complete freedom. There was a creek. We went swimming. We went fishing. There were go-karts. There was a orange grove. I mean, it was heaven. And then as I got a little bit older, and went to school, I realized that other kids didn't live in trailer parks, and it was kind of weird to a lot of kids that I lived in a trailer park. And so I wasn't really, um, accepted very well by other people whenever I was just starting to go to school. And so I sort of felt like an outcast. Not only that, but I have a really interesting personality type that allows me to see patterns really well, but it forces me to not be so good at some other things. Like something that might be super obvious to some people won't be so obvious to me, and things that are really obvious to me, other people have no idea exist in the first place. So when I started tackling the idea of approaching and attracting women, I came from a place of not understanding it at all, not even in the slightest bit. And what happened is a lot of guys, because I just couldn't, I don't know, I don't take in information where I just look around me and see the answers and take it in. I have to see patterns over time to be able to tell whether or not something is valid or not. And so my entire life is based around me seeing these patterns and then creating formulas based on these patterns that work. And it's a really strange way to live your life, I realize now, because it's been the way I've always done it, so I've never really thought twice about it. But most people don't do that, and they're a lot more surface, everything's really obvious on the surface for them. So I'm able to look into well, first off, it cost me some things. Like, it cost me the ability to feel like I can fit in immediately in a lot of situations, but it gave me the power to be able to almost predict things. I can see patterns, and then once that pattern has happened enough times, I can predict what's going to happen next. And so that allows me to look at women and sort of, I've gotten like, oh, you can see into my soul a lot from women. And I have that ability, and I'm able to teach guys to do that. But but again, that's not, wasn't always like this. I was really, really bad with women, really bad with women. And I mean, like, so, I mean, I didn't even kiss a girl till I got in high school. I think a lot of guys probably didn't kiss girls till they got in a little later in school, and I wasn't really, I didn't date anybody at all until I was probably around 17 or so. And it was just really, really interesting, or maybe 16, but really interesting for me to go through this pain period where I didn't know what I was doing. And then one day, eventually, I just snapped. It's kind of a long story, but I could make an abridged version if you wouldn't mind, Vince. I don't know if you really want to hear the whole thing or not, but yeah, yeah. So I'll give you the quicker version. Um, about 9 years ago, I was living in Tallahassee, Florida. I moved there because I just didn't want to live in the trailer park anymore. And most of the guys who grew up in the trailer park still live there, actually. So I had to really escape to get out. And I moved to Tallahassee, and I was working at a gas station there, and doing kung fu full time. That's all I was doing. And this girl walks into the gas station, and it was just like, you know, she's perfect. I'd never seen a woman like this before in my entire life. She was young, maybe a year or two younger than me at the time, and just, I don't know, it's something about her. It's not that she was hot. She was hot, but that wasn't it. That's not what really caught my eye. It was something else about her that was just different than everyone else that I had met. And so immediately I just felt like I got hit by a truck. It was like this amazing feeling. Well, getting hit by a truck is probably bad, but I felt like I got hit by a truck that was full of awesome stuff. And so I essentially, long story short, it turned out we had mutual friends, and I ended up seeing her again. and we really liked each other, but I could feel myself kind of screwing everything up. And every day that I saw her, I knew it was getting worse and worse and worse. And we never actually dated, never kissed or nothing. But I realized I was just gonna ruin it if I continued. And I thought never may meet another woman like this again in my life. So I was like, well, instead of forcing it and trying to make it work and screwing it all up, I need to go study because I wasn't the man I needed to be in order to help her sort of take her life to the next level. So, I definitely did not know what to do, that's for sure. I also thought that I would been such the nice guy for such a long time that stepping outside of that seemed really foreign, not just to me, but all my friends expected me to be that way too. So if I stepped outside of it, everyone thought it was weird, you know? So I sort of defined myself in a little box and I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't like pursue her. I couldn't show her that I was sexually attracted to her or that I was interested in her. The group was really cliquey and I didn't know how to get in there. Like I didn't know how to enter the group and become part of it or take it over or anything like that. So so I didn't know what to do. So I just froze. And I at the same time I sort of had this interesting realization that besides that I suck with women. That's one very interesting realization that I had. The second one was that I started to study Zen, and Zen was really interesting. It wasn't like anything else I'd ever studied before. And I eventually began to see things that I couldn't see before I studied. So I was able to see the process of society, like that it was an engine, that there was a mechanics to it. And if you know how it works, you can, you can get in and you can soup your engine up, sort of, so to speak, and make it run faster, make it more powerful, make it work in your favor. And so that was kind of a big realization for me, but I didn't know how to do it yet. So what I did is I left. I actually didn't know what I was doing. I just split and I left town and I went on this journey. I started hiking the Appalachian Trail. I hiked about 300 miles and I got off and rode a bus over or up to Virginia and then rode a bus up to New York and then over to Michigan and then I did some sailing in Michigan and and then I did some pheasant hunting in Kansas, like random shit, totally random stuff. And for me, it was really about fitting in environments that are completely opposite. I started out from there. That's all I started out with. So I went through this process of trying to improve myself, and eventually, just to jump this one part, I got into a relationship with a girl who was really attractive. She was another one that was kind of the ones that got away from high school. She was really hot and kind of bitchy, and treated me like complete dog shit. And I was a little bitch around her. Just did whatever she said, like just the worst thing you could ever think of, Um, yeah. Well, I feel his pain because I know that's like it sucks. It sucks because when I was in that situation, I didn't have any friends that could like grab me by the collar and slap me across the face and wake me up. Um, so I sort of went down this vortex of pussiness. And then one day something happened and I snapped, and that's really what I wanted to that would really probably shed some light. She never told her dad that we were dating. We were living together in North Carolina, and she never told her dad that we were dating. So one day he decides to make a surprise trip up to visit her and calls her like an hour before he comes into town. So I was working two jobs to pay for the apartment, and I get home from like a 14-hour day, and she's freaking out, and she's like, "Oh, you got to get all your stuff. You got to just leave for a few days so he doesn't know that you're here." And I was a little bitch, so I was like, "Okay, sure, yeah." And I just was tired as shit, but I was like, "Whatever, let's just do this." So I pack all my stuff up in my little Honda Accord, my black Honda Accord, and I drive off. And as soon as I drive out of the driveway, I realize I have no idea where I'm going. I just moved there, and I had no friends, none, not a single friend in town. So I didn't know what I was going to do. So I just drove around until I found a house that was for sale. And it's funny because thinking about this now, it's so far in the past and it's so outside of my character now that it almost feels like a dream to me. It's really interesting. Um, it's crazy. And I drove around and found a vacant house and pulled behind it, and so no one would find me. And then it was like 95 to 98 degrees outside, so I couldn't sleep with the windows up. I had to roll them down, but the mosquitoes were so bad that I had to cover up with a blanket. So here I am, sitting up in the front seat because I can't lay it down because all my shit's in the back seat, and behind a vacant house in 95-degree heat with a blanket over my head, sleeping 2 hours a night like a hobo, just like, and I just still didn't wake up. I still didn't see that there was a problem here. Not until the third night that I was out there. On the third night, and I would wake up and I would go to work, by the way, and I'd come back and after work and I'd wait till nighttime and go there and go to sleep. So it was like really terrible. And after on the third night, I woke up to some really crazy shit going on. I'd only slept for about an hour at the time. I woke up and there's cops all around my car with their guns drawn, telling me to put my hands where they could see them. So I was like, good. My hands out the window, and I was completely half asleep, eyes all red, looking like a crackhead, And apparently the neighbor saw a car parked behind out in the lot behind the house next door, and they called the police. And I think I would have probably done the same thing. But so they, after they realized I wasn't a threat, they put their guns away and they're like, what are you doing here? And I was tired. I didn't even think about it. I just told them the truth, that my girlfriend's dad was coming to visit and that, I had to leave the house for a few days. And one of the cops turned his light off and looked at the other cop and then looked back and he went, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, I'm serious. Still didn't realize that this is not normal, And then he goes, well, you can't be here. You got to go try the Walmart parking lot or something. And I turned around and on his way walking back to his car, I heard him talk to the other cop and he was saying, blah, 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 poor bastard, So he was talking about me and he's like, and that's whenever I heard that. And I was turning my car on to drive away to go to Walmart at like 2:30 in the morning with all my shit packed. That's when I realized that I'd become a shell of a man, that if my dad knew how much of a pussy I'd become, he'd be disappointed, like it was bad, So I drove to Walmart parking lot and I couldn't go to sleep, so I spent the whole night thinking about shit. And I was like, that's when I made a decision to get this shit handled, or I was going to die trying. I actually have a note around here somewhere that I wrote that has that written on it, And so that night I had all my shit packed, so I just reached in the back seat and grabbed something to look at that maybe would have an answer, and that it was my my notebook from my psychology class in college. So I started going through it, trying to figure something out, and I don't know if it was like I was delirious or something, or I don't know what was going on, but I started seeing things I didn't see before, and some new concepts that I didn't see, and I was like, I can use this stuff, like it could work. It could work, I had nothing to lose, so let me try it out. So the next day I went to work, and I actually had to like bathe in the bathroom of some other store, like wake up, go to the restroom and like, get the wet nap, like wipe down, and then go to work. And when I got into work, I started using this concept. It was called propinquity. And propinquity was a psychological concept that wasn't truly finished or used for my purposes. It was like a lot of the study that I realized in psychology isn't complete when it comes to attraction or relationships. It's just not complete. I don't know why. Now people spend a lot of money on abnormal psychology trying to understand it, but everyone's affected by this, and we don't spend any money trying to actually develop it or realize it. Yeah. It doesn't even matter to them. They're just like, well, whatever. It's not really gonna be a big deal. So I took it and I sort of fixed the broken parts of it, and I started using it at the coffee shop. First time it didn't work, second time it didn't work, but the third time this girl laughed. She laughed, and then she asked me if I wanted to hang out later. Asked me my name and asked me if I wanted to hang out after work. So I was like first off I was like, I can't believe it fucking worked. It worked. I was blown away. So that was my first time really seeing something work. But it was like that concept. I've developed new things since, maybe a year later after that would blow that thing out of the water. And then since then, of course, that would blow those out of the water. I've been improving constantly since then. But I spent the next several years just studying full time. I lost every single one of my friends all except one of my friends, because they all thought it was weird that I was studying this stuff. I lost all my jobs. I got new jobs and then lost those too, because I was just late and didn't care about it. I was just so into studying. It was my entire life, you know. And I didn't have anybody to guide me or any one person who knew the answer. I didn't know that anyone else was even studying this stuff. So I just ran around trying to figure stuff out, going to one person or another person and just trying to figure it out on my own, you know. And I modeled some people who were really amazing with women, and then I grabbed some concepts and tried them out. And I ended up, I have a really bad memory, so I started writing everything down. And as I was going through writing down what worked and what didn't, I started to see patterns in this whole process. And that's whenever I really started developing a system that I could use. Eventually, I got to the point where I was using it so well that guys were starting to notice it. And then when they asked me what I was doing, because I had thought about it and because I had learned it consciously, I was able to teach it almost instantaneous. Like it instantaneously show them some kind of progress and success for them. So that's whenever people started taking notice of me and wanted me to be a coach. The first time I started offering classes, they booked up. This is my first day of offering classes. They booked up for 3 months, and I was like, well, shit, man, I really need to start taking this seriously and doing this for real. And I changed a lot of guys' lives, and it was just like referrals were flying at me, and so I ended up being like, I need to really sit down and develop this properly. And I got mentorship since then from guys like the guys who owned or who authored the Modern Gentleman. There's 2 guys. They both mentored me. The guy who mentored Tony Robbins is Wyatt Woodsmall. He mentored me. And then a first-generation Dale Carnegie instructor named Howard Tangler also mentored me. And I've had a lot of other, sort of silent mentors, people who have taught me a lot without even knowing it, or that I didn't, go to and that didn't consider me a protege, that I learned a lot from as well. But a lot of the stuff that I did learn was really really came from developing concepts, like coming up with an idea. And I'm just a really thorough tester of concepts. Thorough, very, very, very thorough. If it doesn't work one time, then it's not true for me. If it's one time that it doesn't work, or it works 99% of the time, then I don't want to deal with it. It's not true for me. So I went trying to find the thing that worked all of the time. And as you know, Vince, there are very few of those things, if any. So I ended up getting the core of what actually makes an attractive man, and then building out from there and building techniques on top of that, and concepts and tools and things like that allowed me to sort of surpass every other man that I'd ever met. And so yeah, I got a reputation for teaching guys and having a massive success rate, like unrealistic success rate with my students. And eventually it got to the point where I got so good. I was on the Today Show. I had my own show on Sirius XM Radio. I had a award-winning show on Current TV about me. Been in tons of newspapers and magazines and all that crap. And it was really fun. It was really great to do that. But when I got up there and I was like standing on top of the world, I was like, well, what woman do I want? I still wanted that woman from the gas station, that same girl from the gas station. And so I went back and got her. Now I live with her here in Venice. So same girl, yeah. I went back. Probably. I've been with her since we moved here. So I'm not sure if you met another girl. If you did, it's not my girlfriend. But yeah, her name's Kelsey. Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing, and I'm very happy with her. And hands down, if it wasn't for what I know and what I learned, there would be no way in a snowball in hell that I would have gotten her back and been able to keep this going, because I used everything that I learned, not to get her attracted, but to keep her attracted. Once we had gotten together, and what's sort of if I had to go back and do it all over again. And the thing that I would do differently is I would search a little more to try to find somebody who's already done this, who's already got the answers, and follow them, because it would have shaved, 6 years off my study time, and my mastery time. I mean, I think that you can master this in a couple of years, maybe 1 year, master it. Not even just you can see results instantly, but you can master this area of your life in a couple of years. It's not very difficult to do. I mean, most things being a millionaire, that might take a little more than a couple of years, for most people. But this area, which I think is more important than money, hands down to me is more important than money. This thing can be mastered very, very quickly. And so I think a lot of guys don't know that, and they try to go figure it out on their own, and I wouldn't recommend that. I would follow somebody, maybe even several people that you like that are smart and that definitely know what they're talking about, and do what they say and learn and test everything, you know. And that's what I did. I tested everything, but I didn't have someone who could just guide me all the way through the whole process. That's why it took me about, you know, I've been a professional coach for 6 years, but it took me about 5 or 6 years total in the first place, from the day I started studying to 6 years after that, to actually master it. And it could have taken me only 1 or 2, you know. No, no, not till later. When I found out that there was a community of people that were studying this, I was like, I was like, I don't even know how to explain it really. It was kind of like thinking you were an orphan, your family was dead, and finding out they all live in the same town somewhere, you know? And all you have to do is go there, and then everyone will know who you are, you know? And you'll be accepted by everybody. It was amazing. But as soon as I got in, um, I immediately, you know, brought my concepts in and found that I was like, you know, I was really advanced compared to a lot of people who were already in the community. And so I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or anything. I learned a lot since then, and from people in the community as well, because it's just such a beautiful group of guys who are just so amazing and into self-improvement and really want to get this shit handled. And so, but whenever I came into it though, I immediately just stood out, and then people started wanting to study under me and everything almost instantly, because I did a lot of work on myself and did a lot of work on my own, and I brought new concepts and new ideas that no one had ever heard of before. But yeah, I found the community maybe 3 years, no, 4 or 5 years after deciding to make this decision for myself, to sort of improve myself. So it took a while of me kind of wandering around. I wouldn't waste that much time if I were you. Definitely, you're all lucky. I mean, everyone's lucky that is watching this, because you're already surrounded by people. You already have access to information. You're like just eons ahead of where I was whenever I started. So it's cool that you got there, you know. Yeah, sure. Okay. I spent most of the time talking about myself. That's what I do. Sure. Yeah, yeah. I have lots of things, but first, the most important thing to understand, like none of my techniques would work or would make any sense unless you know one thing about this process in the beginning, this sort of opening process, and that is women. Let's separate two parts. Let's say that most of the stuff that we have studied, is on a conscious level, like meaning that we're using our conscious minds to control what we're doing, right? So mystery method is very, very telling of this concept. Mystery method is almost all conscious. Like you're like, I'm doing this, now I'm doing this, right? And that's great. That's really important to have. Now, but your conscious mind, for every one bit of information your conscious mind processes, your subconscious mind processes 10,000 bits of information. So that means your subconscious mind is 10,000 times more intelligent, smarter, faster, more accurate than your conscious mind. Yes, you can't directly control it like your conscious mind is. You can control your conscious mind, right? So, but let's shift gears from us for a second. Let's think about women. Women aren't being conscious about hardly anything that they're doing whenever they're at a bar or any place like that, when they're just kind of wandering around. Since you've studied, and since we both, all of us have studied, and we are studying, we're more conscious. So here's what we miss typically. We miss that we're not going up against a woman's conscious mind. We're going up against a woman's subconscious mind, which is very, 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 very strong, powerful, and accurate. Very powerful. And they know exactly what's going on. So here's what happens. The language of your subconscious mind is two things: emotion and body language. Those are the two things. And you can evoke an emotion in someone else by using body language that their subconscious mind will recognize. Now, this is where things started really changing for me. And the opening thing I did, I tested everything. I broke down routines, stripped them of body language, tried them without body language, tried them with body language, tried them in pieces, tried them mixing up the pieces. And I found, like, I tested everything I could possibly test. And not just with one or two interactions. I mean like with 15, 20, 30 interactions each one, and to figure out which was working. And consistently over the period of several months of testing one thing, I found that body language alone, without even saying anything, outperformed everything else that I did. Period. You know. And so this was really important to me because it meant a couple of things. It meant that the language, the thing that we're doing when we use our body language, is actually causing an emotion in a woman, and that emotion is what she reads to see whether or not she's attracted. So you can actually cause a woman to feel something subconsciously without any, she really can't help it. She just feels it. And then she'll check in to see if she likes you. And when she does, she'll feel that emotion and she'll say yes, right? But if you don't know how to do that, it doesn't matter what you're saying, when she checks in to see if she likes you, if your body language isn't perfect, really, smart, intelligent body language, you're not using it like a tool, like you use verbal language, then she'll check in and the answer will be no, and it doesn't matter what you say, it'll always be no. So I don't think of opening as walking up and talking to women anymore. I think of opening as soon as a woman knows that you exist, period, she's already decided whether or not she's attracted to you. And that's corner of her eye, anything, right? You walk in, she can be looking this way, and you're walking in from over here, and her peripheral vision is going to pick up your body movements and then log it in her subconscious mind. And when she looks over and sees you for the first time, her subconscious mind is going to pull up that information and paint you with it. And that happens. If you've ever screwed up once in the beginning, that's why people say, first impressions are a bitch, because they are, If you look over, if for 1 second in the first moment, her subconscious mind is going to look at you, categorize you, and put you in a folder. That's what's going to happen. It'll either be attractive, unattractive, or not sure yet. That's basically all that you get, And so what I do is before I talk to anybody, I make sure everybody sees me with positive, or not positive, but dominant, attractive body language. And this makes everything go so much more smoothly. I can stand right next to a guy who says the exact same things that I say, and he will not get, and looks exactly like me. I mean, everything, he could be my absolute twin, say the exact same things as me, but if he doesn't do the work that I do ahead of time to expose myself in an attractive way with my body language, then it will not work for him. I've seen guys do this before. And it's all about setting that standard. There's a step before you open a woman, there's a step before that we don't know about, that no one really talks about or knows about. And that's sort of the introduction phase. That's where you become a blip on the radar of people that exist in the world to a woman. And at that moment, there's a really popular book called Blink by a guy named Malcolm Gladwell. And in Blink, he talks about first impressions and how long it takes, and why some first impressions are really accurate and some aren't, And he sort of breaks down a lot of these concepts. And it makes a lot of sense the way he explains it. I mean, your subconscious mind is super, super intelligent, and it processes stuff instantly. I think that you guys talk a lot about how long it takes for a woman to decide whether or not she's attracted to you, and it's really, really quick, like maybe 4 or 5 seconds, before she's like, okay, got it. And she doesn't have to be looking straight at you to do that, She can be... I read books on body language, but I didn't read that book. I read actually most of the study that I did on body language was through NLP study, of all things. NLP, hypnosis, and persuasion. So I studied a lot of how to get other people to follow me, or how to get other people to do things that I want. Basically, just use my body language to persuade people, and that's really all that attracting women is. You can't convince somebody to do something they don't want to do. You can't convince a woman who to like you. Period. You can't do that, but you can make her want to like you. You can make her desire to like you, or you can make her feel good when she's around you. And when she, again, like I said, when she checks in with her body and checks in with her emotions, she'll feel that emotion and she'll automatically go straight to that I must be attracted to this guy, or he must be really attractive or valuable as a person. So at the end of the day, what I found out sort of after all this stuff is that women are attracted to basically one thing. And attraction is only a small part of an interaction, don't get me wrong, but that is a really big hurdle for a lot of guys. Women are attracted to usually body language, but it could be anything that tells her this, to guys that other women are attracted to, other women desire. That is it. That's it. That's why guys who seem like or who already have lots of women around them or have women that desire them, they don't have any problem because they've sort of worked up the momentum and then they just ride it, you know? And they make sure that other women know that they make sure that new women know that other women are attracted to them, and that's the end of it, you know? And it works really, really well. So all the body language that I teach is body language that guys naturally do when a lot of women want them, because it automatically sends off a signal that you're a valuable man and most of the work is done. Now, I'm not going to say that having techniques and tactics is not smart. It is smart. It's really smart, and it works really well. But it doesn't work. It won't sort of paint over the idea of bad body language or bad tonality, things like that. You know, you have to build up that base first and then take the techniques and tactics on top of it. Exactly. I mean, it looks really cool to have a car without the engine because no one knows that it doesn't have any engine until anybody tries to ride it, you know? And then if they try to ride it, and you can consider this very sexual conversation innuendo right here, you know, you're kind of like, yeah, you kind of are like a car. If you don't have the engine in there, or if you have a really small, weak engine, everyone's going to laugh at you when you try to drive because you're not going to be able to go anywhere, or you'll be going really fast, and the outside looks really awesome, but the inside is, there's nothing in there, you know? So as soon as a woman tries to sort of test drive your car, which means talk to you or whatever, it won't work unless you have an engine. So, well, you know, those are training wheels and they're powerful. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, those are really powerful training wheels. Having something to say, like I have to put banter lines when I had in the Tao of Badass. There's a reference back to the members area. Anybody who gets it gets a membership, and it's and there's a banter line cheat sheet in there, and it's just got an ongoing running list of banter lines. Why? Because they're necessary. You know, you need something to say when your brain goes haywire. You know, you need something to fall back on, but you just need some things, not everything, but you need some things. And the best way to put it is that in the beginning, everything is a crutch because you have to use it to sort of work through your anxiety, right? But Brad Jackson actually talks a lot about this, and he's very eloquent with this when he talks about this. He says that in the beginning it's a crutch, but your goal is to take that crutch and make it a super secret weapon, basically, you know, like an atomic bomb, and having those powers to use in case shit goes bad is really comforting and will make you very, very confident. You'll walk in, you won't have to worry about things going wrong anymore, because at the end of the day, attraction is non-neediness, you know? So as soon as you need the interaction to go well, then of course it doesn't go well because you need it to go well, and that shows neediness, and neediness kills attraction, and attraction is what you need for it to go well. So it's kind of this, like, you know, catch-22, like an infinite loop here. So the way you break that cycle where it's like you're constantly having bad interactions, the way to break the cycle is to essentially use a training wheel and then stop. As soon as it works and you got it down and you know how to use it, stop using it. Just remember it, maybe write it down, put it in your back pocket, and then only pull it out whenever you're starting to feel like nervous or you don't know what's going on, right? And you're like a little bit confused. Besides that, I mean, I've spent, you know, I've been with a lot of women, well into the triple digits here with women, and that doesn't mean anything, by the way. I know a lot of guys that are terrible with women that actually have slept with a lot of them or been with a lot of them. But as I've been going through this process, I've been conscious of everything that I've been doing. You know, I cracked the code for making women fall in love with me. You know, for creating love out of nowhere. I cracked the code for creating attraction out of nowhere, for seducing a woman, for keeping a relationship together. I had to go through one piece at a time, and then after I learned everything, I had to sort of pull back and let it sort of be in the background just in case something went wrong. I could use it, and that's really what it's for. You know, I think that I have a friend who described it this way, and it's really really powerful way to describe it. That all the tools that you learn while you're starting to be either a pickup artist or just be better with women or whatever it is, are like scaffolding on a building. And what most guys do is they never take their scaffolding down. They just leave their scaffolding up, right? Once you learn the skills and you've done the renovation on yourself and you know these things and you have them and they have worked, you have to tear down the scaffolding. You have to. so that you can reveal what you've done, reveal the finished product. Otherwise it's just a building with a bunch of crap on the outside of it, and no one gets to see how beautiful it looks now. The paint job, all the finishing work, all that stuff that you've done to yourself that really is refined and awesome. And then you can walk around with that natural person and know that you have these superpowers in the back burner that you've learned, that you've mastered, that work, that are effective and that work. And that's what you want to have. That's very important. Yeah, yeah, you can test that one. That one's true. And I'll give you a tool too. This is one of my favorite body language tools, and one of the things I see guys screw up more often than anything else. There's a list of I think I have top 10 things that I have in the Tao of Badass that I see guys do wrong, but I'll give you one of them. And it's really subconscious, and we don't even think about this whenever we do it. I mean, you may know this already, Vince, but the concept's called negative body language. Now, negative body language is, just to sort of give you the background behind what it is, whenever we need something, without thinking, we automatically turn our chest and our body to face the thing that we need, right? Always. It's what we do. We were wired to do that. Just like women are wired to look for men that other women are attracted to, right? So we automatically do that. So this is a problem, because whenever you're talking to a woman that you're really attracted to, maybe you still feel like you need this to go well, but if you feel that way, you'll never be able to attract this woman, right? And as soon as you start attracting a lot of women, you won't need to feel like this needs to go well, right? It's kind of like the idea of getting your first job, Oh, I need to get a job, but I need experience in order to get a job. But if I can't get a job unless I have experience, but I can't get experience unless I have a job, So it's kind of like, well, what the hell am I going to do? So what we end up doing is we end up finding a job that doesn't need experience to start out with, getting experience, and then leveraging that, right? So you find a way to hack the system, So as you're going through this process, your body is speaking the truth always. Like, that's why I'm really, really good at sort of one of my good friends of mine, this guy named John Benson, described me by the way of saying, or just described me as saying that I can see into your bone marrow, because that's what I do. I'm reading body language. I'm looking into people. But they're all telling me what they're thinking, but they're not saying the same thing. So as soon as I get an incongruence, I own you, because I know what you're trying to hide, And it's a very, very, very powerful thing that I cover a lot in the Tao of Badass. But one of the things that we do naturally is when we need something, we face that thing with our body, right? So instead of facing someone directly, a woman in particular, when you first meet her, if you have a lot of women chasing you, what are you going to do? You're not going to face her directly with your body, even if she's hot. You're not going to. Why? Because you don't need it to go well. Because you have other women that want you. All right, but you may want to talk to her because you go after what you want. So the concept is, I want this, I like it, but I don't need it. I don't need it. So try this. Next time you're talking to a woman, period, no matter who she is, as soon as you say something and you get a positive response, like she's laughing, whatever, try doing what's called a takeaway. A takeaway is where you turn your back to her almost fully for like 2 seconds. Just turn your back, like laugh, and then turn your back as she's laughing, turn your back, count to 2, and then turn back around and laugh again and play with her a little bit and be bantery, right? So when you do this, you'll see her attraction spike like massively. She'll start to chase you and try to lock you down, because she doesn't know if you're going to do that again. Or if, just because most guys, whenever she gives a positive response, they lean in. They're like, I want more, I want more, I want more, right? But she's looking for a guy who, when she gives a positive response to him, he gets positive responses from women so much that he doesn't need it. So he turns around or he does whatever. He gets distracted, And this really, really, really works. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you do this only when you give her when she gives you a positive response. But also, whenever you first meet a girl for the very first time, if you turn and face her directly with your body and you stay there, you'll start to notice she starts to turn her body away from you. And as she does this, the attraction is slipping away. So I don't go all the way around. Usually I turn around one way and then turn back the same way. Like I'll just give you an example. I'd be like, we're laughing, I'll turn around like this, and then I'll come back again and I'll keep talking, right? Yeah, or like, or I'll do this, like, whoa, like everyone, I'm not that funny, I'll turn around or something, then I'll come back again. I don't even have to look at anything else. You don't have to. You can be distracted with nothing. You can just be turning around and turning back around again like you were thinking about leaving and now you're coming back, And that works. It works really well. And the reason why is because it's wired in us to evoke an emotion. It's wired. And it lets women think that this happens to you all the time. So when you do interact with a woman for the first time, typically what you want to do is you just want to turn your head. Like I'll be doing this, basically, when I'm talking to her. And then as we go through the stages, it's at a certain stage in the interaction that you look for this stage, you look for signs that you're in this stage. When you get to this stage, it's time for you to turn your chest toward her. You're like, oh yeah, and continue. And then at another certain point, finally, it's time for you to turn your legs and your entire body facing toward her. But typically, guys do this immediately. They just automatically face a girl. And that's not an attraction body language cue. That's a rapport body language cue. And basically what you're doing is it's the body language equivalent of walking up to a woman and going, hey, you come here often? Where are you from? Do you like baseball? I like baseball. It's exactly what you're doing, because that's what guys do with their bodies when they're doing that. So it doesn't matter what's coming out of your mouth. It matters more about what you're doing with your body, because the truth is we don't trust what you're saying in the beginning. We don't know you yet. Women don't know you. So they're going to not trust anything that comes out of your mouth. They're trusting your body language. They'll listen to you, but they're not trusting you. So you don't want to start out with a woman with everything you say, her going, is that true? Is he lying? Is that bullshit? Is that real? Is he really confident or is he not confident? You don't want that. You want her just to go, this feels good. And the only way to do that is with body language and vocal tonality. Well, first thing is that I would not do that. That's what's called, I had to label this because so many guys did it. It's called a chode crystal. And so you get this group of dudes who are holding their drinks like this up at their chest. This is called drink guarding. We do this because we're scared and we put something right here to cover our chest, So what usually happens is guys are doing this and they're looking around the bar. Now, you're doing three things. One is that you're dropping value because you're just interacting with each other and nobody else. Now, that's not a big deal if you're in rapport. If you're talking to another guy or a group of guys and everyone's intently in the conversation, your value is going up in a bar. But if you're all sitting there like bullshitting with each other, looking around, then you seem desperate, right? Because a guy who's attractive, who has women chasing him, doesn't go to a bar and look for women. He doesn't do that. He goes to a bar and talks to his friends and has a good time with his friends, and then women pop up, right? That's what happens to him. And if it doesn't happen, he doesn't care because he's got other women. So it's really important that's the first part. That's the first bit of that process. The second is that when you're looking around like that, that's called sharking. That means you're looking for somebody, and what you're doing is you're trying to smell blood in the water. You're looking for someone who is approachable, right? Not someone who is hot necessarily. I mean, you'll look for the hot girl, and she look at her, damn, I'll go approach her. No, you go approach her. It's usually, all right, I'm going to go talk to her. Then you walk up, and she just saw you sit over there, look all around the room. She knows she's hot, and now you're walking up. If you walk up with some kind of an indirect thing, it's going to be such bullshit to her. Hey, did you see the blank so-and-so outside, or who lies more, or whatever it is, Have you ever had that blow up in your face and you got totally rejected because the hot chick was there? It's because she saw you looking around for a woman to approach. You approached her, and now you're making it seem like it was for some other reason. And it's not congruent. It doesn't make sense. Women have this red flag filter for congruence. They need you to be congruent. So that's the first thing. But the body language that I would have, here's what I always do when I go into a bar with a group of dudes. If I can pair off with one or two guys, I always will. I don't want to be in a huge group unless it's absolutely necessary. But if I am in a huge group, there's only a moment that I'll allow it to just be us. Immediately, I'll be pulling other people in because that's really what's important. You don't have to approach anybody for yourself. One of the most powerful things you can do is find women and bring them into your group and introduce them to guys. The reason why is because it makes you look, A, like a leader because you're doing this, B, like you don't need women, which is attractive to women, and then C, you become the social ambassador, right? You become the person who is bringing people together, right? So these are all three very, very attractive qualities. So if I'm going to stand in a group, no, trust me, you don't need anything. I can literally say, hey, come here real quick, I want to show you something, and just go walk her right up to a friend of yours and go, listen, you guys are both. This is so-and-so, say your friend's name. This is James. This is Cookie. You can make up a name for if you want to. You guys both like 18th century Mongolian architecture. I'll leave you at that. You know, like just total bullshit, laughing, silly stuff, right? And he'll go, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like, I don't know. I thought she was cute. I thought I'd bring her over. You really don't need any reason to do it. Women will just take your lead because you're doing this already. Now, again, if you're standing there and you look around for women to approach, and then you go approach when I try to bring her back, you're gonna have a hell of a time doing that. I usually don't do that. Usually, what I do is I approach while I'm in the middle of a conversation with somebody else. So I'll be talking to you, say Vince, we're having a conversation, and I'm standing here, and then a girl walks by right here. I'll actually touch her on the shoulder for a second while I'm talking to you, and then I'll turn my body just a little bit, and then I'll start to point at her and like talk. I'm talking to you about not her, right? And then I'll go, well, I'll finish my sentence, and I'll go, "You are cute," right? Like that, and that's what I'll do. Or "You're trouble," right? And then I'll play with her a little bit, and then bring her in, and then introduce her, and then I can leave. I can do that because I'm confident that she's not going to find anybody more attractive than me in the bar, at the bar. And if she likes my friend more than she likes me, awesome, dude. He owes me big time. That's great. There are more women, you know. So what I usually try to do is talk to one or two guys, but just a few of us. And while I'm standing there, it doesn't. We don't actually have to have a deep conversation, but it has to look like everyone's giving me their attention while I'm talking, and everyone's giving the other person their attention while they're talking. It has to seem like we have a purpose. Like we're going like, "Oh yeah, blah, 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 blah." We're talking to each other. We're in a deep conversation, or we're like shooting the shit, right? Because then when women look around and scan the room, which they're constantly doing, they're scanning constantly. When they look around, they see us, and the sort of like laser grid goes over us, you know, they're going to go, attractive. They're going to go, these guys they're not going to flip any switches that are weird in their heads, you know. Everyone that I know that's really, really good with women, actually very good with women, does this. They do this. When they're talking to a friend of theirs, they are fully engaged, and they don't get distracted easily unless it's like, you know, they're bringing someone into the group or whatever, right? So as long as you're standing still and you're not talking to anybody else besides just your friends, then make sure it's something that is, it doesn't have to be a deep conversation or anything real. It just has to seem like that when people look at you, you know? Like you look like you're like, you know, you're both like kind of going, yeah, it's really, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, I've even said, "Hey man, I don't want anybody to think that we're not talking about anything important, so I just thought I'd chat with you." You know, and he's like, yeah, I totally get it, because if we're not talking about anything important, we drop value. And it's like, exactly. You know, and I'm doing that we're just like having this great conversation, but it's not about anything, you know? And yeah, it's hilarious, you know? And then as we're doing that, you know, we're allowed to, in the middle of that conversation, turn around and look at women and then draw them into our conversation. Or I'm allowed to leave and go approach somebody from there and come back. It's fine, you know? As long as he doesn't stand there waiting, you know, we're okay, because then he'll drop value. So what a lot of guys do is they don't realize that there are two things that decide your value. One is how valuable you think you are, and the second one is how valuable your friends are. You know, if your friends are all lame and they're all super needy, and you're the one confident guy out of all of them, they're going to be weirded out. You know, they don't think that you have a really good choice in judgment of friends. You know, I've had that happen to me a lot whenever I went out with certain clients that were really, really bad. Like they didn't really know anything at all about this. And they're like super like below beginner. You know, I was I was worse than anyone I ever met before, ever. And I've been coaching for 6 years professionally. I was worse than anyone I've ever seen come through whenever I first started. So it doesn't surprise me or anything. But whenever I do have those people in, sometimes I'll be talking to women, and they'll literally go, "What's going on with all your friends? Are they like friends from work or something?" You know, they start to ask questions, like really strange questions about my friends, because they're not like me, you know. And so you have to bring your friends with you. They need to be in on this. They need to know that it has to feel natural, you know. And that. What's that? Okay, so here's what I do when I'm alone. There's something that I teach that I didn't teach it forever. I just used it because it worked, and then I started teaching it eventually, called the bar walk. And the bar walk is where if you're by yourself at a bar, it works really well. When you walk into a place for the first time, people see the door open, and they typically look at the door, right? So they'll look over, and that first moment you walk in is when most of the women there are deciding whether or not you're attractive, right? So what most guys do is they walk in and they do this thing. They'll open the door and they'll be like, stop, and they'll go like this. and then they'll stand there for a minute and they'll be like, and then they'll walk over to the bar and then they'll stand there at the bar and they'll look around, and this is the worst thing you could possibly do. It's natural because, you were assessing your surroundings. You're like, okay, that's over there, that's over there. Just in case something goes wrong, I'll be over here, there's a group of really aggressive dudes over there. I'm going to try to avoid those guys. Like, that's what we're naturally thinking. But do not do that. Don't ever do that. Instead, walk in the front door, even if it's a place you've never been before, and just look straight ahead and walk straight to the back. Doesn't matter where you're going. Just walk straight to the back and look for the bathroom, right? Because in the bathroom, you can kind of compose yourself. You have a minute, right? Go to the bathroom. Even if you don't have to go to the bathroom, just go back there. Walk past everybody. And you don't have to speed walk or anything, but walk with like a purpose. Like, okay, I'm going this way. I'm relaxed, but I'm walking this way, looking ahead. And just look at everybody on the way. Don't scan the room. Don't do that, And then when you come back, walk to the bar, straight to the bar, order a drink, and just talk to people along the way. Don't try to go with a purpose with the actual purpose of meeting a woman, right? Go with the purpose of going to the bathroom, then going to the bar, then checking your phone, voice messages, or sending a text, or talking to some guys. Doesn't matter, right? You want to have one thing to do, and you want to meet people on the way. That's what's really, really important, especially if you're alone, because people get kind of scared, if women are like, oh, have you ever had a woman ask you, did you come here by yourself? Okay. So for me, when I actually was by myself, especially, I had to come up with an answer for this. And the answer that I found that works better than anything is, my friends might show up in a little bit, but I'm not really that worried about it. That was my answer. Even if I definitely I was by myself, I would be like, I would just say either my friends are probably going to be here in a little bit, but I really don't care. I'm happy I'm the first one here or whatever, But even if they never show up, like, oh, I must have gone to a different bar. I got a text, but I like it here, so I'm staying. Who cares, It's just like should I be afraid of you is what they're asking. And the answer is no, you should not be afraid of me. If you say anything else besides, besides no in some kind of way, right? If you go, I like to come to bars and meet new people by myself. People go, weird, I had a friend who said this really funny thing. I thought he was talking about business, but it applies to this. He said he had a mentor that taught him you can be a Buddhist and you can be a nudist, but you can't be a Buddhist nudist, or a nudist Buddhist rather. Meaning you can be one thing that's strange, or you can be another thing that's strange, but you can't be two things that's strange. People won't accept you for that. If you're an outgoing guy at a bar that she met that night, that's different than normal. That's already strange. It's not like a bad thing, but it's strange. But if you're an outgoing guy that goes to bars by yourself to meet people, that's too different, right? It can be a little strange. Now, of course, people take this to extremes, and you can use this to your advantage, but it's kind of an advanced concept. For example, Eric Markovic, also known as Mystery, he does this often. He'll take, he'll be very hella strange, like all sorts of strange. So it sort of raises the bar, but he also uses perfect body language and draws women to him, and that's what he does best. He does that. He also tells stories, and he's practiced a bunch of routines, everything. He's just memorized a lot of stuff, and that's what's made him good at what he does. But for me, I don't want to wear a fuzzy hat or wear makeup or put lipstick on a girl and have her kiss my cheek or my neck or something. I don't want to do that stuff. I don't want to. I want to be myself. I want to be who I am, but I want it to work, really, really well. So I don't step outside of that too much. I'm sure with a lot of stuff with style, like doing style, like using style to actually attract women, there are a lot of similar concepts, If you go too crazy, then you have to explain it, and it can be really weird to some women. Mystery doesn't get every woman he wants. He doesn't. No one does, And one of the reasons why he doesn't, and some women he doesn't attract, are women who can't handle that weirdness, So yeah, I would say that the number one thing I do when I'm at a bar by myself, though, is the bar walk. I walk to the back. I walk outside. If you smoke cigarettes, which I don't, but if you do, go outside and have a cigarette right afterwards. Talk to people outside. Just talk to people on the way to go do stuff, because you won't ever psych yourself out. If you do this for about 10 minutes at a bar, then every woman you talk to you will have on a par bar on their bar of the level of which this level of women are attracted to you, that will be raised. Instead of it being 10% people in the room are attracted, 50% will be attracted to you. And then it's just left up to you to not screw that completely up. I would even test it. I would say, what in one bar, in one night, I want you to do walk in and don't do this. And then the same night, wearing the same thing, acting the same way, walk into another bar and do it in that bar and tell me which one you have better results from. And I can't really guarantee anything because I don't have anything that of yours to give back like money. But if I could, I would. I mean, I would guarantee it. It's just, I've done it. I've seen it. It's proven. I've seen it happen, and I've taught it for, almost a decade. So it works really well. So that's what I did. That's what I do. And some of your best, are you there? Sorry. Okay. Some of your best weapons in a bar by yourself are going to be other guys that are not very good with women, because you can talk to them for a second, engage their attention, and now you have friends to like a pocket of people who know you, right? And you can do that with women, with guys, anybody you want, and you start connecting people. This is how you run a bar. When you connect people, you run a bar. It's really amazing. It's counterintuitive because what most guys do is they want to go get the girl and then leave. But in order to get that girl, you have to run the bar typically and then get her, then leave, because she'll see that you're valuable. So it's powerful. Right, right, right. Well, the reason why is because now people accept you for not knowing anything or not really being around, or not knowing not knowing rules, whatever. And they also feel obligated to show you the thing about their town that will make a good impression on you, And that's a really powerful thing to use. That sort of a tourist hat that we put on, like I'm not from here hat, is the most powerful hat that you can wear. I mean, when I say hat, I mean we have these different parts of our personality that we bring out at different times. And the one that's the I'm not from here part of our personality, whenever we believe that we're not from somewhere and we walk into a place, we have no expectations, number one. We're open to new things, number two. And the third thing is that we don't hold ourselves back because we don't want to ruin an interaction. Doesn't matter, right? So that I have a course called the 5-Week Body Language Mastery course, and in that course I talk a lot about what's called psychological space and framing and things like that, really kind of advanced concepts. And I go over this concept of putting on how to put on different hats. And the most powerful one that I sort of reveal in that is the I'm not from here hat, because it allows you to break rules, to skip steps, to seduce women instantly. I tested this out. I went to a bar for different bars for about a month, pretending I was from different places. I did Italian accent, British accent, both of which are terrible. And what I found was that the Italian, when I was pretending to be Italian, it worked really well. British, it worked for a little bit, and then it stopped for me, right? And then American was just like my normal results, right? So then I took the Italian thing, and I was like, let me try to use the accent, but without using any body language, and see if it helps. And it didn't. It was terrible. It was as if I wasn't doing anything, So then I had an American accent, and I used like the flamboyant Italian body language that I was using, and it worked, again, instantly, And it was all about this mentality of being like, well, I don't have anything to lose, because this is who I am. This is just what I do. And if you don't know, if you're not used to that, it's probably because I'm not from here, right? If you think that I'm different, it's probably because I'm not from here. So, yeah, it works. Sure. DTF. I don't know what that means. Down to fuck? Okay. Are you not allowed to curse in this thing, or? Okay. um, yeah. Well, this is kind of the super secret for a lot of really successful guys, is that 90% of it is knowing how to attract, but the final 10% is knowing which target to choose, right? Some women, and you can tell by body language, it is body language, and it's also eye accessing cues, meaning when we look in different directions, we access different parts of our brain. And if a woman's accessing her emotional brain while she's being sexual, often, meaning, if she looks in that direction and you see it happening, you can jump straight to seduction. You can. It's because her body temperature's high, right then. For some reason, she's worked up sexually, and you can go right in and just close it, I've done superhuman things that guys are like, how the hell did you do that? Like walk up to a girl. One thing that stands out was a friend of mine at the time was a student, and he was at a bar, and he was like walked up to this really hot girl at the bar, standing there. She was posted up, with her drink and her legs crossed and her slinky dress, and it's like the classic thing, and surrounded by people. And he walks up to her and he's like, "Hey, blah blah blah, talk talk talk," and she goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, whatever," And she turns her back to him. And then he's like, "Oh," so he came over to me and he's like, "Dude, I just got rejected." And I was like, "I saw. It's no big deal, man. And really, trust me, it's not a big deal. Let's just continue." And he's like, "Well, I really like to see you demonstrate." I really didn't demonstrate very often. So I was like, "Well, here's the problem. If I demonstrate this, then for the rest of the night, I will not be teaching you. I will be hooking up with this girl, right? So I want you to know that. I don't go halfway, then turn around and come back. I don't do that because then the girl's like, what the hell, Yeah, she's like, what just happened? Yeah, what's wrong with me? She starts thinking, and I don't do that to women, right? So he goes, okay, no, cool, go ahead and do it. So he sits down, and I walk up, and as soon as I look at her, I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, this is gonna be ridiculous, because I could tell immediately. I could tell just by the way she's doing specific things with her body, that's seeming coy, but is sexually charged, and I knew what that meant. So I walked up. Yeah, yeah. Well, one was she had emotional eye accessing cues, so she was looking in a certain series of directions that I could see her eyes moving to, and she also what we do is our facial expression, body language from our facial expression is really literal. Like you can basically translate it literally, like saying if someone does this, it means they don't want to see you. Or squint their eyes, they don't want to see you as much, which means they don't really like you. Or they're skeptical, right? They're not very happy. If their eyes are really wide, they want to see more of you. If their eyes are dilated, they want to take in more information, right? And their body just does this automatically. So a girl who's sexually charged would typically try to hide it a little bit more than normal, meaning she'll cross her legs and she'll shrug her shoulders, right? So she's trying to hide herself a little bit because she's an open target to guys. If she was just like openly like, hey, anybody want to fuck? Everybody like, oh, me, right? So she doesn't want that to happen. So instead, she'll overcompensate in the other direction. She'll cross her legs, she'll drop her head a little bit, she'll shrug her shoulders, and then she'll start looking in the certain directions with her eyes and half smiling, especially if she's daydreaming about stuff and smiling and doing all these things at once. So you're looking for clusters of body language cues. You're not looking for one, looking for clusters. If she just crossed her legs and everything else wasn't there, I'd be like, I don't know. We'll see, But she had all these signs that were all the same, pointing the same direction. And I knew like 99% accuracy what I was doing right there. So I walk up and I pattern interrupt. So I had to do a pattern interrupt, which was every other guy in the bar was, actually pattern interrupt is just whatever she expects to happen, you do something different, right? Regardless of what it is. So she expected me to walk up and chit chat and small talk, but instead I walked up and I said, I want you to be quiet for 1 minute. We're going to have a secret kiss and no one's going to know that we're doing it. And as I'm doing this, I went straight for it, and I leaned in. As I'm leaning in and I'm using my body language and touch in a way that's escalating everything. And as soon as I see her compensation change, meaning that she was compensating to try to hide, as soon as she lost control of it and she started like getting visually changed, like her body was visually changing, and she was being a little bit more open, and she was like looking at me in my eyes and then looking at my mouth. This is another thing I did. I triangulated. Whenever you look at a woman's mouth and then look at her eyes back and forth, if she does it back to you, she wants to kiss you. That's period. That's like one of the biggest secrets that that guys don't really know. So I went up, I used all these things that I knew in seduction all at the same time. Vocal tonality, body language, touch escalation, eye contact, triangulation, everything that I did it all at one time, and sort of hypnotic speech patterns. And I got really close to her ear and I was talking and I was making sure she could feel my breath on her neck as I was talking to her. And then I turned my head and we started making out, literally 15 seconds, literally, and my friend was like, what the hell? Like completely blown away. I pulled her away and I ended up having sex with her in the bathroom. But after that night, he saw me a little bit later on and he was like, dude, I will never doubt you again. That will never happen ever again. And I was like, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. But it is possible. That's all I wanted to show you. And I ended up dating that girl. I was polyamorous and I ended up dating her and 6 other women at the same time. And I was very, very open about that, obviously. And they were all cool with it. But I ended up actually cutting her off because I ended up breaking up with all my girlfriends to date one girl at the time. So uh, unfortunately, I only slept with her a few times, and then I had to split. But normally, I'm like a 30 night stand kind of guy, or 90-day stand kind of guy. Before I move on, I don't like one night stands or 3 night stands very much because sex gets better over time. I don't want to just have the worst sex, which is like the first sex usually. But yeah, so that's a very powerful thing, and a lot of guys don't know that it's possible, to skip steps like that. But you have to understand the rules first. If you don't know the rules, you can't win the game. You'll always lose. It's like trying to play basketball and thinking that you're playing football. It just doesn't work. You'll always get called out for it. Everyone will think that you're stupid. It just won't work. You'll be a failure forever trying to do it. Everyone will hate you because you won't follow any of the rules. And you won't have any control. You'll be helpless in your situation. So you don't want that to happen. You need to know everything that I know, basically. Everyone needs to know what I know. Everyone needs to know what their mentors know. You need to get that out of people's heads so you can use it, flow it together and make this really natural process for women. Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you, Vince. Appreciate it.